In this video, we will review various endpoints having to do with classifications. By the end, you should understand the kind of data you can get from a classification and how you can search for classifications. The first query we'll look at is how to get all of the classifications for a standard. The API only returns one level of classifications at a time. Later we'll look at how to get child classifications for any given classification. Starting with a particular standard, in this case we're querying for MasterFormat, we can request a list of classifications within that standard. When we look at the results, we can see the standard is returned with an array of classifications, and the title and number as we requested for each of these classifications is returned. If we wanted to drill in further and look at the child classifications for any given classification, then we can extend our query and specify the number of the classification that we're interested in. You can then request the children of that classification. So when we request this, we can see for the classification that we requested, we can see that it has a number of child classifications. If you're looking for a particular classification, then you can specify it by its number or ID. So as we request this classification, we can see that it was returned along with the other data that we requested by ID. Alternatively, we can request the classification with its business-friendly number identifier. The way that works is if a GUID ID is specified and recognized, then that's what is used, and if not, then it searches the number field for a matching classification. So we can see in the data that was returned, we get back the correct classification. One important thing that the Crosswalk API will do is perform crosswalks across standards. So if you know of a given classification in a certain standard, for example, in this case, we know this classification in MasterFormat, we can request for a crosswalk to other standards for information about the most similar classification in another standard. To do that, in our query, we will request within our classifications, we will request crosswalks. Within crosswalks, we can request the number, title, and information about the standard that pertains to this crosswalk. So when we make that request and we look at the heating, ventilating, and air conditioning classification within MasterFormat 2018 version, we can see it has a number of crosswalks. In OmniClass, in the version 2013 pre-consensus approved draft, we can identify the number and title of that crosswalk. We can do the same for UniFormat and other versions of OmniClass, MasterFormat, and UniFormat. This allows us to reliably go between standards. For example, if two trading partners are operating on different standards, they can use the API to make sure they're talking apples to apples. The last useful endpoint that I want to show is searching. Searching can be done by keyword. In this case, we're searching for steel, so any classification within MasterFormat that matches the word steel in its title will show up here. So you can see on this result, we see steel pipe and tubing, and so on. Alternatively, we can search by number fragment. So if we know an entire code, or if we know just a fragment of that number, we can perform a search, and any matching classification will be returned. In this case, we searched for 4005, and we get a list of classifications that match that search query.